Welcome to our Women's History Month travel safety tips and tricks presented by Fat Girls Traveling. I am Annette Richmond, the founder of Fat Girls Traveling. Super excited to be here with you today. I am joined by Summer and Chantel. They're both travelers, members of the Fat Girls Traveling community, but they both have unique stories and some interesting tips and tricks and just personal experiences to share with you today. And so, yeah, let's get into it. Summer, do you want to start by introducing yourself and letting the audience know a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I'm Summer Michaud-Skog, and I founded the Instagram account Fat Girls Hiking in 2015. And really the Fat Girls Hiking page became a community where we started hosting hikes in person in Portland, and now we have chapters all over. And I just wrote a book and it's coming out soon. So that's my intro.
Super exciting. We're definitely going to dive into the book a little bit later. Chantel, do you want to introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about you?
Sure, yeah. My name is Chantel Loura, and I am a plus-size travel content creator, blogger, and I'm the creator behind Voyaging Vagabond, which is my travel blog. And right now I am currently based out of Lisbon, Portugal, and very much so enjoying it.
Yay, expat life. Chantal is in Portugal. I am based in Mexico right now. So that is something that we relate on. Summer, where are you coming from today?
I'm on the Oregon coast, the North Oregon coast, and I live in my van. That's another, I guess I'm terrible at introductions. So I live in a van, and I also rent this yurt space where I park my van every night. So that's where I'm coming from.
That's really cool. I'm like, dude, your van is pretty spacious with all those plants in them, but I guess that's the yurt. That's really cool.
Yeah. The van used to have plants, but they all died. So now there's plants in this space.
That would be tricky to keep plants alive in a van. It's hard to keep my plants alive in my apartment. Okay.
It was tricky when I went to Minnesota in November. I kind of forgot about them and didn't bring them in the house. So yeah, that's what happened.
And I'm sure they were freezing. I'm sure the babies froze. Yeah.
Yep, I killed them. I own it. So bad but true.
So I think you mentioned the year that you started Fat Girls Hiking, but can you remind us when you started Fat Girls Hiking and kind of what inspired you to start Fat Girls Hiking?
Yeah. So it's been almost 7 years since I started Fat Girls Hiking. And really it started as a way, like I was hiking a lot. And I was kind of like new to hiking. I lived in Portland at the time, and my girlfriend at the time and I were just like going on a lot of hikes and camping and traveling all over Oregon. And, I was really into Instagram because I'm a photographer. So I wanted to find other people who, fat people and queer people who were doing the things that we were doing, and sort of like see that representation on Instagram. And honestly, it really wasn't there at the time. I rarely saw even like women represented on Instagram doing outdoor stuff. So it really started as the Instagram account started as a way to like offer that representation of like what we were doing. And, it's really just, it's snowballed from there, because I guess a lot of us really need that representation for hiking. And, now it's turned into like, about van life as well. And not just about me and what I'm doing, but it's about like what everyone is doing, because there's this space for everyone to sort of share who they are and what they're doing as well.
Which is one of the things that I really love about Fat Girls Hiking and really inspired me when I started Fat Girls Traveling. You obviously know that when I started Fat Girls Traveling, I reached out to you because I wanted to use a similar name, and I wanted to make sure that you were comfortable with that and I didn't step on your toes. But one thing that I really admire about you is that you don't necessarily center yourself on the Fat Girls Hiking Instagram page or like on any of the platforms. It's really about the community and the people that are within the community, which is something that I love about Fat Girls Traveling as well. It really is about, especially the Facebook community, is really about the community kind of just sharing their stories, asking questions about travel, asking questions about packing or fat friendly destinations. And so I really love that with Fat Girls Hiking, you kind of shine a light on other people in the outdoor space that look like you, and that's something that inspired me to start Fat Girls Traveling. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I was thinking about that, earlier this morning about how we connected a long time ago on your desire to start Fat Girls Traveling and, how to do that. And like, similar to what I was doing, but in this traveling sense of like making an inclusive space for, fat women or fat people in general in that area, because honestly, like every sort of industry, I think needs marginalized people to step up and say like, this is how I'm able to do this, and this is how I do it. And maybe that helps other people who are like, I didn't even know I could hike, or I didn't even know I could travel, or, your tips help me feel more comfortable in the outdoors, or, on an airplane, or whatever it may be. Like, we're actually creating these communities that like, we feel less alone. And I think that's such an amazing thing. And, I'm a Leo, but contrary to wildly popular belief, I don't like to be the center of attention, and it like makes me really uncomfortable. I get very much like nervous and anxiety even before doing something like this. I have this fear of public speaking, but like I want to be true to who I am and be authentic in myself, and like I'm awkward and weird, and that's okay. And I might not always say the right thing, but I'm gonna like do my best, and like really like I would just want to bring people together and like celebrate fat people in the outdoors and doing whatever they want to do to like get there and support that journey for people.
Thank you. We definitely appreciate that as fellow fatties, and appreciate all the work that you've done in the space, and just second that need for representation in the outdoor space and the travel space, in all spaces. Like, marginalized people need to be represented. And I don't think that it's too much to ask for. And that is what so many of us are fighting for. And that is why communities like ours exist, So I have a couple questions for Chantel. So how long have you been an expat? And can you explain if any of your friends or family had any trepidation, or were they nervous about you moving abroad on your own? Can you kind of share some of your personal experience with that?
Yeah, totally. So I was a digital nomad for like a long time. Like I want to say back in like 2016, I was like off and on the road, like coming back to my parents' house in between, and then like going off and traveling for 3 months. And then it was kind of the pandemic that like forced me to become an expat. Not necessarily forced me, but I had planned to stay in Portugal for a set amount of time. My wife and I, she was my girlfriend, but my wife and I were planning to do like a work away and do like a volunteer for a few months. And then my girlfriend, who has US citizenship, her 3 months ran out. So she was like, okay, I'm going to go home. And I was like, okay, I'm going to travel for a few more months. And then I'm going to go visit some friends. And then I'll come back in the summer. And then the pandemic hit literally the next week. Portugal shut down, and I had to make a decision. Like, did I want to go back to the States, or did I want to stay in Portugal? And financially, I realistically couldn't go back to the States. Like, I couldn't afford to live in the States. And so I was offered by the same woman that I volunteered from her hostel. She was like, please come stay during the pandemic. Like, however long quarantine is, like, you can stay here. The hostel shut down. So like, please just come, like, so you have a place. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to stay until quarantine's over. It's just 2 weeks, and then maybe I'll fly home. And then like 2 weeks turned into 3 months. And then, 3 months turned into 9 months. And then I was like, oh, I think I live in Portugal now. And then I was like, okay, everyone else come live in Portugal now. But it was a really fantastic decision. Like, it really came down to like my mental health and like where I felt most creative. And it turned out to be Portugal. And as for my friends and family being concerned, no, my family is, my mother and father are Portuguese immigrants. So like, their whole idea of me coming back to the motherland was like fantastic. Like they were like, we're so proud of our Portuguese daughter in Portugal. And all of my close friends, like also knew like I'm super close to my Portuguese heritage and like the culture. And so when I was like, oh, I'm moving to Portugal, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. But now a lot of like, there wasn't really so much concern. Like I'd been traveling for so long. And like, I always said that I was going to base myself somewhere outside of the US and certainly outside of Rhode Island. And then it just kind of happened and everyone was like, okay, yeah, Chantel lives in Portugal. That makes sense. But now we have a reason to go visit. So that's how it ended up.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. You almost had me out in Portugal, girl. Like before I moved to Mexico, you were trying to get me to come to
I
Portugal.
was really pushing it. I really wanted you here. I'm not going to lie. And you were like coming in June. I was like, perfect, in time for summer.
I was very close. I was very close to moving to Portugal. So that's not a lie. She definitely was trying to get all of her friends and family to move to Portugal with her. I was included in that recruitment. It almost worked. It almost worked. I have a couple more questions for Summer now. Okay, so Summer, can you tell us a few of your favorite hiking destinations? I know it's going to be difficult as an avid hiker. I hate when people ask me for like favorites of stuff, but if you can drop a couple of your favorite hiking destinations, that would be awesome.
Okay, so yes, I've been hiking pretty much anytime I travel now, it's like to go somewhere to hike. Obviously that hasn't been the case with the pandemic lately, but one of my favorite trips that I did was I drove from Portland to Glacier National Park, which I really love national parks because even if you don't want to hike, even if you just want to like take a scenic drive, there's so much to see just from the roads in national parks typically. And so I really like appreciate national parks for that reason. So I went to Glacier National Park. I did do some hiking there. The Going to the Sun Road is gorgeous. And I think we drove that road several times, like just the views from, you can take little trails off of the parking lot and it's very busy. So it's like, we had to go like dusk or dawn, like right when the sun was coming up. We were like at the trailhead, and then by the time we left, it would be like packed. But from there, we went up to Canada and we went to Banff National Park in Canada. And oh my gosh, I think that is probably the most gorgeous scenery I've ever seen. I'm more of an ocean person. I live near the ocean because I love the ocean and I love being near an ocean. But if you're into mountains and like gorgeous turquoise lakes, I mean, you could see the glacier, the water's like melting and going into the lake, like from the glacier, like right there on the mountain, like, and you're just like, I just did a little hike to see this amazing scenery. So those are my two favorites. Here I have some great trails that I love near where I live. Living on the coast, there's tons of old growth trees and moss. I'm obsessed with moss. If you follow me, you know that. It's like one of my favorite things. It's and I think you don't understand it unless you really see like the drippy, mossy forests of Oregon. It's very specific. Some people say it's creepy, but I don't really trust those people. But everybody's got their thing, so I guess they can not like moss. That's fine. But I would say like anywhere you want to go, if there's a national park, you're probably going to have a great time, even if you don't want to go for a hike. So it's important to me to like that there's like different levels of hikes available for people. And I would say national parks are a really good way to go.
Definitely. I love a good national park. Recently went to Yosemite, which was incredible, and Yellowstone, like in 2019 when all this stuff was possible. So definitely have been trying to see more national parks during my travels. Do you have any just kind of general hiking safety tips that you can kind of give, maybe like top 5 hiking safety tips that are just kind of general?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually wrote about this in the book too, so I like went back to see what I had written. Makes it more official. But I think some really important things to keep in mind when you're hiking and you're thinking about your personal safety is the environment, and it also is other people. So I recommend to people to make sure that you're prepared as far as like what you have in your backpack, like having enough food and water. Having the right weather appropriate gear is really important. Having a first aid kit, bear spray if you think it's necessary in your area, like a multi-tool that has like a knife on it. All these things are really important to have like on you, on your person, and will keep you safer. I also do like research before I do a hike. So I'll look at like trail reviews online. There are some like user review websites that you can go to, or apps that you can use, that you can see like what people have seen on the trail. So you can also get a sense of like if there's any sort of like closures on the trail, or if anybody has seen like a wild animal. I mean, that's another aspect of safety, is like, what kind of wildlife might you see, and what do you do if you encounter this wildlife if you're out in, you know, on a trail. So knowing that information, I think, is really important. One time I went for a hike at Mount St. Helens National Monument, and someone had mentioned that they saw a cougar in the parking lot of the trail that I was going to go to. So I was like, like, what do I do? So I, you know, got online and did some research on like what to do if I were to encounter a cougar, which is not something I've ever had to deal with, thankfully. But having that information, and I carried like a little miniature bat in, because you're supposed to fight back if you see a cougar. So I just carried it so I could like quickly, you know, have like a little bat, and that made me feel safer when I was on that trail that particular day. The other thing I would say is, if you're going hiking by yourself, which I highly recommend, I think it's really like, it's like one of my self-care tools is to be outside by myself and be hiking by myself. So if I'm somewhere where there's not cell service, that's another good thing to know before you go hiking is, are you going to have cell reception? You know, if you don't, that's fine, but you want to make sure that someone knows where you are, especially if you're by yourself. So, you know, screenshot and text your friends or whoever might, you know, want to know where you are, where exactly you're going, which trail you're going to do, where you're going to park, and then what time they should expect to hear from you again. Just, you know, just to have all that information just in case. And I've never had to use that information when I've done that, and my loved ones haven't either. So that's obviously, it's rare that will happen, but it's good to like be prepared, and it makes me feel comforted to have those preparations. And then there's other things like just knowing if the hike is appropriate for you, for your abilities and your skill level. If, you know, if you're not sure, I would say try like urban hikes and hikes with, you know, where you have cell reception, and go hiking with a friend if you're just getting into hiking, before you really get that like confidence and knowing like how far you can go, and how many mileage, you know, how much mileage you can do, and like what elevation gain is appropriate for you. And like turning around if you're tired, or before you're tired, really is a huge safety thing, I think. And you don't really know that until you do it. You don't really know how far you can go, and maybe you'll be tired right away when you start. It just depends on you know, individually. And I have chronic pain, so like it really depends on the day for me. Like some days I can go further, and some days I can't go at all. But really, it's just like finding what is best for you and your body and your capabilities. And that is an important part of safety, I think, because, you know, you don't want to have anything happen to you, or like, you know, I've rolled an ankle, you know, and that's probably the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But you know, it's also like, who are you going to encounter in the outdoors? So it's the people part too. So like, as a fat person and as a queer person, I'm always kind of like nervous a little bit about like, will I be safe? Like, will it be safe? Like, you know, when I was hiking with my girlfriend a long time ago, it's like, will it be safe, or will I feel comfortable to be like affectionate? Right. So there's like, that's on my mind. And it's not always, it just really like depends on the situation. And then like, as a fat person, I've encountered like really not great comments from people passing me. And these are like pretty rare instances, and I haven't had to deal with that much, but it does come up, and it can come up. So it's, you know, being like emotionally prepared for those kind of things too, and taking care of yourself after those things happen is really important, I think.
Those are such great tips. And I definitely agree with some of the like microaggressions that have happened to me while I've been on the trail. Is like, I'm a fat person, maybe hiking with my straight size friend, and maybe I'm like standing over to the side to take a break, and then random passerbyers are like, you're almost there, you almost got it, you can do it, not, you know what I mean? And like they think that they're being helpful, but in actuality they're just being annoying, and it's just like microaggression and passive aggressiveness. And so I definitely, like, it doesn't happen all the time, but it is something that kind of can happen. And emotionally, you just have to be prepared for that, because you are going to be, in some instances, you know, if it's a tougher hike, you are going to be exhorting yourself a little bit. And then maybe your mental capacity for not snapping on somebody with some fat phobia might be lowered. You know what I mean? So just definitely get yourself there. And then also what you were talking about that resonated with me was like telling other people that you're going to be going on a hike, and like what area and like what time you might be finished. Because I remember going on a hike with a friend, and we didn't really, it was our first time on this trail. We had never explored this trail before. And before you know it, now it's dark. And we're out on this trail, and we don't know how that, like, it's kind of too late to turn around. We don't know what the hell we're doing. We saw an area where there looked like there were cars passing by. So we're like, okay, there's a road. We basically got to that road, had a car drive us to where our car was parked, because we had started it at the main part of the state park. And now we're somewhere within the state park and lost. So we had someone drive us to the main entry for the state park, noticing that now the state park is locked and we're not able to get our car out. So we had to like find someone like that worked there. So like a guide that worked at the state park, he was able to actually, no, he was not able to get it unlocked. We actually had to hitchhike to town and then get an Uber to my house. And then the next day when the park was opened, we were able to get our car from that park. So being able to let somebody know when you're hiking, where you're hiking, and what time to expect you to be done, that would have been a really, really helpful tip for me, especially on that day when we were exhausted and it was nighttime and we were lost and our car got stuck in the state park. And yeah, so much stuff. So thank you so much for those tips, Summer. And you did kind of touch on like hiking while fat and hiking while queer. Were there anything else, any other tips that you wanted to add in those sections specifically?
No, I think I covered pretty much everything. But that's a wild story. I've never been locked out of a trailhead before. Wow. That reminds me, carry a light source in your backpack, a headlamp or matches, because if you do have to you know, if you end up like, let's say you didn't see the road, right, and you had to spend the night outside or something, like having like an emergency blanket. I keep a bunch of stuff in my like little first aid kit, so it has like an emergency blanket that also doubles as a shelter, and like rope and some matches, and you know, water purification tablets, like all these emergency kind of pretty unlikely that you'll ever have to use them, but you know, it's like a just in case situation. Then you're I don't know, I've never used any of those things in my first aid. I think I used a Band-Aid one time, but having them on hand is really helpful. But that is scary, and I'm glad it was all fine. And it's kind of like, it really, like, you have to like really utilize your like creative problem solving skills, I think, when you're outside and things like that happen, because you're just like, what do you do? It's a really like a growth experience though, for sure.
Totally. And you mentioned some like apps that can help you. I know for me, one that I would utilize, especially when I was stateside, was All Trails. Is there another app that you might suggest? I know for me, All Trails was really helpful because it would tell me like how much of an incline there was at that specific trail, or how much like if there's stairs, you know what I mean? Like different things like that for accessibility. Also, like you mentioned, like I remember hiking and there was a wildcat spotting at that same location like that day. So we were able to check All Trails and kind of just know that that had happened that day, and just to be aware that there might be a wildcat. Are there any other apps that you might suggest?
I love All Trails. I use that one. And the thing I really love about that app too, and I used to have a subscription, but I hike more locally these days. But the thing I love about it is you can download to your phone the trail map as well. So it's like so even if you don't have cell service, you have the trail map like on your phone. And I really love that app for that reason. And I'll look at other sources too, just to make sure, because I did have an instance where I was using an online source, and I also had a book that had this specific trail that I was doing, and the online information was not accurate, and I ended up getting like a little lost. And then ended up finding my way back and like consulted my book in the car, which I didn't have it in my pack, which is like a learning experience for sure. But my second source of directions, you know, I understood where the trail was, because it was just like, you know, in a weird place. And but so yeah, I would say like having multiple sources for directions of the trail is really helpful in my experiences, just because sometimes just the way trail reviews are written are like a little confusing. And just to be able to understand, especially if you've never been to the area, it's really helpful. Or if the trail's not well marked, in the case of me getting lost.
Yeah, it can be really tricky. So I definitely suggest, you know, if you're going to go on a hike for a first time, download one of those trail apps to kind of help you, to guide you. And like Summer said, you can actually download the actual trail so that you're not lost, even if you don't have cell reception. A couple questions for you, Chantal. I'll get you back in here. So I know before you mentioned you were kind of solo traveling and you and your partner were just dating, but now you are married, you're married, and you are living and traveling with your partner. Like, how is living and traveling with your partner different from solo traveling? And how do you guys manage safety as a queer couple traveling?
It's different because I just want to stay home and cuddle her all day. Like, I'm like, what do I need to go outside for? My wife is here, my cat is here, Uber Eats is on the way. Like, I don't understand. So I mean, I do find myself going out and exploring more when I am alone, which is, she's gonna kill me because I know she can hear me and she's gonna be like, I can't believe you told them that. But no, for me, like the biggest difference traveling solo is like, I just like do what I want. And I love that freedom. And I think that's why I enjoy traveling solo so much, is like, oftentimes I'll kind of like, I'm like a people pleaser. So I'm like, oh, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do. And I do that all the time. And I'm trying to stop it, but like, you know, I'm not the best at it. So like when I'm traveling solo, it's really like an opportunity to like really just do whatever it is I want to do. But I also really love having Steph there because like we have faced difficult situations while traveling. And like it's really fantastic to like have your partner there to like support you, or like also be trying to figure out solutions. Like we tried to fly back to the States like end of January, and it was like a hot mess express, and like we missed our connecting flight, and it was just like this whole big situation, but like we were together so we could just like laugh about it, whereas like if I was by myself I might have like been freaking out a bit more. So it's nice to have her there kind of like as like a calming force. But then in terms of safety for us traveling as a couple, you know, Steph and I have traveled to quite a few countries, and I have to be honest that like we haven't been to a ton of places that like don't necessarily support LGBTQ people. For me, like I always want to give to my money to people that like actually support me and like don't want to kill me. So I don't know, like, I don't know if that's like upsetting the countries that do have those laws in place, but like there are still laws in place where like Steph and I could be put in jail, and like Steph and I could be killed if they found out that we were married. And you know, my little tiny, you know, Filipino like 4'11" wife in a foreign jail, like no, I just cannot do that. So I think like for safe, I wouldn't necessarily safety, but for me it's more education. Like am I going to feel safe there? Like how do they treat queer people there? Like is it somewhere that like I have to be on my like I have to have like extra heightened attention to? The only time I've really faced a situation is Steph and I were on a train in Rome. We were like traveling between Rome and I think Florence, and we were on the train and I had my hand on her knee, which like is just like this small little like PDA moment that like most, you know, hetero couples wouldn't think twice of, most couples in general wouldn't think twice of. And I was just like reading a book and like had put my hand on her knee, not even thinking about it. And then I happened to look up and this man was like if looks could kill, those eyes would have lasers coming out of them, like shooting me on sight, because like I have never seen so much hate in a person's eyes. And it was just very much so like, okay, like, yes, I didn't think of that. Like Italy's a bit more conservative. So like, even just like a simple action of PDA like that in some places could be considered wrong. So it's just like putting in the extra research to like really see if I'm gonna have to face those situations.
That is definitely awful. I just saw Priscilla mention that in the chat. That's definitely awful and frustrating that as any person that you have to kind of research to see like, am I going to be accepted in this country? But I do agree that it is really important to kind of research the laws and stuff like that before going to a country. Like for me, like in a safety way. Yeah. Basically, I was in Malaysia years ago, and this could honestly happen anywhere. But I was in Malaysia years ago and was being followed by this guy, and he ended up exposing himself to me and then just like following me kind of as I was walking through town. And like it got to the point where I actually had to like pull out my pepper spray because I didn't know if he was going to try to approach me. And we were both kind of stopped at this red light, and I'm like, have my pepper spray in hand, ready to spray his ass if he's going to try something. You know what I mean? But he just ended up walking, through the red light. And then I ended up researching later that day just to see like, is pepper spray legal in Malaysia? And like, luckily, it is legal now, but like 2 years prior, it was illegal. So it's kind of like, just imagine if it had been a few years earlier and I had used that pepper spray on him and it was illegal for me to actually have the pepper spray in that country. So it's like, these are some of the reasons why we have to kind of research what is allowed in certain countries, even for your own safety. Like, are you allowed to have pepper spray or a taser in certain countries just as, a traveler or a tourist? So definitely make sure that you're researching this stuff before you travel. I wanted to ask both of you ladies, starting with Chantal, do you have any like favorite travel gadgets or accessories or anything?
Not so much like a travel gadget or accessory, but I was thinking about this question because as you know, you sent them to me ahead of time. And I was like, I don't know what my favorite gadget is, but I was like, okay, what do I bring on every single trip? Like that's more important. So for me, I have what I like to call a kitchen sink bag. It's like a little tiny 5 liter like Eagle Creek bag. And I just put like the randomest things in there. So I have like a sewing kit, I have like Advil, I have batteries, I have a headlamp, like just like when you're kind of like in a situation, like it's like what's in the kitchen sink, like that drawer next to the kitchen sink, like all of the like mishmash things that you're going to need at some point, but like, and I also keep like, I don't know if you guys have seen, but like, they're like the kitty, it's like a keychain and there's like kitty ears and then you like put your finger in their eyes and it's like a weapon. So I also keep that in my kitchen sink bag. I do keep like a keychain attached to it. So like if I go through TSA, they're just like, oh, it's just a keychain. And I'm like, yes, I just love cats. Like I just love them so much. Um, so for me, like that's what I would recommend, like to just have a little bag that like has all of those odds and ends. And if you do want it, like they have so many like female personal safety accessories nowadays. So like if you do just want like a small little keychain thing that's like a little, like mine's like a little plastic one, like I throw it right in that bag. And like I think one person has asked me about it in like all my years of traveling, but it's just like another added level of security for me. And like at least I can like feel good if like I did face a situation, I like had something in this bag. It's like a Mary Poppins bag, like something will solve this problem in here. So I would recommend having one of those.
And what about you, Summer? Do you have any favorite like hiking or travel gadgets, anything just for general hiking or travel or anything specific for safety?
Well, for personal safety, I really like using trekking poles. They're those kind of like, they look like ski poles, but you use them on hikes. For me, as a kind of a clumsy, not always balanced person, it really helps me to like keep my body sturdy and safe. And it really helps to alleviate the pressure that I might feel on like my lower body, like my knees, and I have chronic back pain. So it really helps me if I'm going up or down to really like be stable and steady. And if you're on like, any muddy or, slippery kind of trails, it's really, I think it helps me stay standing up, which is good. That I don't know if that's necessarily considered a safety tool, but that to me is like, was a game changer. I always thought they were like, oh, only people who are like super experienced use those, or only people who are like older use those. Like I had some sort of like weird preconceived ideas about who is supposed to use trekking poles, and honestly it's anybody who wants added stability, anybody who wants that like that lower body support, really. I would say use them. There's collapsible ones, so they can be about this long, and I pretty sure that I've taken them on an airplane before and I don't think I had any problems. But they collapse down to be about, I don't know, a foot long maybe. And there's attachments for like a snow cage. So if you're hiking in the snow, or even if you're just walking, like if you need an extra balance, it's really good for that. So.
Yeah, those are awesome tips. And I have to admit that I think that I had some preconceived notions on who was allowed to use those trekking sticks as well, because I thought it was maybe just for like older hikers, but especially when it's like muddy or rainy or something, I could definitely see something like that coming in handy. And I don't know, I'm going to share my kind of travel accessories essentials. And if something inspires you, ladies, feel free to pop back in and say, but for sure, I did a little video before this, but for sure, a doorstop. I always travel with a doorstop because for me, I can actually, it's a safety tool because I put it in the door to keep it closed so that like if I'm staying at a hotel or Airbnb or something like that, or even in my, in my apartment, or even if I'm staying in an Airbnb where I have like a private room, you can put that doorstop in the door so that people actually can't open the door. And so that's something that I use if I'm staying in a hostel or a hotel or something, just for some added protection. It just makes me feel better. Something else that I always travel with, it's not necessarily safety, but I always get so many mosquito bites or like bug bites when I'm traveling. So I always travel with hydrocortisone cream because it can be tricky to find it in different countries, especially if you don't speak the language. Like you can't just go to the pharmacy and say like hydrocortisone cream. They're not going to know. And I know for me, if I bring some hydrocortisone from the States and I put it on my bug bite, like the itching is going to stop immediately kind of thing. But if you're trying a new cream in a different country, trust me, I've been there. I travel so much and have had a nightmare with bug bites. So hydrocortisone is key. I also travel with like feminine hygiene products because in lots of countries, specifically Asia, even here in Mexico, it can be really difficult to find tampons. So if you're someone who likes to use tampons, I get the assorted ones that have like the light days and the super days and like all the assorted different tampon sizes. And like whenever I'm getting on a flight to a different country outside of the States, I bring my own tampons with me. One place that I did kind of have an issue was like even in Europe, like they have tampons there, but they don't use applicators in Europe. You know what I mean? So you're like sticking your finger up there, you know what I mean? Because they have these little tiny little tampons, but it's different. You know what I mean? So this is an essential. This is a women's travel safety thing. Like BYOT, bring your own tampons if you're if you're getting international. A luggage scale. I love a luggage scale because your girl has a problem with shopping/packing. And I must admit that one time I paid more in luggage fees in a flight from Malaysia to Thailand. I think I paid like $300 in luggage fees and the flight was $100. Like I literally paid more money for the luggage that I brought to Thailand than my actual flight to Thailand. Okay, y'all. So if you have if you have a luggage scale, you might be able to avoid this. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can only bring one luggage and then you have to pay for everything else that you bring, but luggage scale is key. A converter, if you're traveling internationally, like a converter that can go to like a European socket and an American socket. I also travel with like one of those super long, like extended chargers so that I can charge my computer, I can charge my cell phone. It has all the US plugs, and I'll plug that long thing into my converter if I'm in Europe or Asia or somewhere. And then I have 5 or 6 outlets to plug all my stuff into. So that's essential for me. Let me see a luggage with a lock, or buy a lock to put on your luggage, especially if you're going to be staying in hostels. Like Chantel mentioned in the beginning of the pandemic, she was doing a work away, but then ended up staying at that hostel. Getting a luggage with a lock or bringing a lock with you is so clutch, especially if you're sharing accommodations or staying in a hostel. You can put all of your stuff in that luggage and then lock it and be legit. And like, they're not going to be able to get that thing open. Chantel, it looks like you have something to add to that.
I just wanna like, I am so, yes, get a lock. Like if you're traveling in a hostel, it is absolutely essential. Like do not come to a hostel without a lock to lock your things up. Like like everyone may seem really friendly, but like you really don't ever know. And so like Annette said that, and I'm like, yes, absolutely. Like have a lock on your bag when you're traveling through the city. Like if you're going to like the train station, like have a lock on your bag. I used to bring like, like a bike chain. Like I had like a little bike chain. And so like, even if I put my bag on a train, like on like the train racks, I would like loop it with my bike rack so that like no one could just like take my bag as they were getting off the train. So yes, I just support that. Locking things up. It's important.
That is a great tip. And I do actually like that, like metal, like bike chain kind of thing. That would be, they have lots of different options and versions of that. So that is a great suggestion. Quick questions for both of you ladies. Have either of you ever lost your passport or had your passport stolen while traveling?
I did. I was in Canada. I think it was like my first time going to Canada. And I thought I had a lot of ideas about Canada being this very safe utopia. It turns out it's just very similar to the United States. But I was at a very popular trailhead, big parking lot, and I had been hiking earlier, and so I left my backpack in the car, and my girlfriend at the time did as well. And we come back from our hike. We were maybe gone like 30 minutes, come back, and our backpacks are both stolen. So my passport, my camera, my girlfriend's wallet, all were stolen. And my wallet thankfully was in the glove box, but this broad daylight kind of busy parking lot. So I never leave my wallet or passport not on my person. That was a very good lesson for me. But the thing that was really hard about that was that we were in another country with no passports. And turns out you can come into the United States without a passport if you're a citizen, and they have to like allow you entry into your country. But that was not a fun experience. And then I had to like get my passport replaced. And so I just, my thing now is I have all of my, like my wallet, my passport, money is like on my body. It's not even like in my bag. It's like on me. So it's like, in a fanny pack is usually what I use now. And even when I go hiking, it's like the fanny pack with all the important documents and stuff is like in my backpack. So I'm always in control of those very important documents.
That's such a bummer story to hear, but definitely a learning lesson. I do believe that from Canada, you're able to come back into the States if you don't have your passport, or if your passport got stolen or something. That was a question that was actually asked in the community, in the Fat Girls Traveling community. And someone mentioned, after speaking with someone who had recently retired from Canada's border, they said that like you might be detained for a couple hours, but they'll definitely allow you back into the States. However, if this were to happen and you were in a different country, you were abroad, you were not in North America, your only kind of resort would be to contact a US embassy, get in contact with someone there and try to get your passport replaced. try to get it expedited and sent to the country that you're in. Another possible option, it's very important to have a copy, like a photocopy of your passport, and an image of your passport as well. But it kind of is up to the person at the airport that day if they're going to accept that. You know what I mean? So the best kind of course of action is to reach out to a US embassy in the country that you're in and see how they can help you, because unfortunately, if your passport is stolen or lost in a different country, you probably will have to get it replaced before re-entering the US. You also mentioned, Summer, that your phone was taken. Oh, actually, Chantel, did you have something to add?
No, I was just gonna answer the passport question because I did actually have an experience where like I did have to go to the embassy and like replace all of that. I'm gonna let you finish your thought first. You just let me know, okay? So basically what I was gonna say is back in October of 2020, I checked into an Airbnb, I was planning to stay there for 3 nights in Lisbon, and I was by myself. I had rented the whole apartment. I went to sleep, and when I woke up, everything was gone. So like I had been living out of my backpack for over, gosh, like a year and a half at this point. So like everything I owned was in my backpack. And I remember like waking up and then like going to shower, and I was like, oh, I need to get my stuff for the shower. And then I like went to the living room because I had left my backpack. I had left my laptop on the sofa. Like I was working the night before, like everything, and nothing was there. And I was like, I know for a fact, like I put it there. And then it was like that like really haunting realization that like, oh my God, literally everything I own has been taken from me. And someone else was in my apartment while I was sleeping, robbing me of everything I own. So it was like, honestly, one of the worst experiences I've ever been through. And so like, I had taken all of these extra precautions. Like I had pictures of my passports, like photocopies of my passports, because I have a Portuguese and a US. I had like photocopies of my credit cards. If God forbid, like something happened, I would at least have the numbers that I could call. And everything got taken, all of it, like right down to my vibrator in my backpack, guys. Like I'm talking everything that I owned, like no exaggeration. And so like all of my credit cards were gone, all of my money was gone, all of my identification was gone. They like went into my coat pockets right down to the cent. So like the US embassy was like, okay, come to the US embassy. But the US embassy in Portugal is like a 3-hour walk from where I was. So I'm like, okay, how do I get there? Like I literally do not have, like, I don't have a bus ticket. Like I don't have money to get a bus ticket. Like it was a mess. Like I literally was like at the bottom, and then like had to be like, okay, what do I do from here? And so like I did have to go through that experience. I tried to replace my Portuguese documents first because you would think like being in Portugal, it would have gone quickly. However, if anyone has come to Portugal and has had to deal with like logistics, you'll realize nothing is quick in Portugal. So I ended up having to fly home to get all of my documents replaced. And in order to do that, I had to go get what's called an emergency passport. So basically you set up an appointment with the US Embassy, and you go and you like bring a little picture of yourself that you can take at like any of the photo booths around here. And they set you up with an emergency passport. It's pretty pricey. I can't remember the exact amount, but I remember being really pissed that I had to pay it. Like, I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but I knew it was like at least like $100. But the nice thing is that they'll replace so like what you spent on that temporary passport, as long as you renew it within like, I think it's 6 months, then they pay for your new passport. And so like I flew back to Portugal and ended up renewing my passport here because I knew I was going to be here longer. And so I sent in my emergency passport, and they sent me a brand new one within like 2 weeks, which was shocking. But like, you know, I had to have my card sent out here. I had to have some sent to the States and then sent out here. So like what I would say, like having gone through that situation, like, yes, if your passport gets taken, absolutely go to the like email the US Embassy right away. They'll be able to like figure out a way to get you some kind of identification. Having pictures of all of my stuff on my phone was so helpful. I honestly had it by chance. I had like, my wife had asked me something and I like sent her a picture of my passport just so she had it, and like she had it. So like, also if you want to send like that information to like a person you really trust, like you never know, like I was lucky enough that like they didn't take my phone, but like if I hadn't had my phone, like, you know, my girlfriend having the pictures of my identification would have been really helpful. Not everyone's going to accept it, and everyone's going to make you feel like crap about it, because you don't have ID. Like, I don't know why people treat you terribly when that happens, but they do. But like, I think having like those pictures is super helpful. And then like having like a really solid support system that you can like reach out to. Like, I instantly called my Portuguese mother, which might have at the time not been the best idea, um, as if I wasn't freaking out enough. But my mom was really good about, because I had credit cards and they were like, yeah, we can send you money, but you need an ID. And I was like, awesome. Like, they were like, we can send you emergency cash right now, but you need an ID. And I was like, that doesn't help me. So like, lucky enough, I had my parents send over some money that I was able to get back to them, but like they sent it to a friend that was living in Portugal through her PayPal so that she could take it out from the ATM and send it to me. So, you know, like just having like people that you can rely on if you're in like a really shitty situation in a foreign country, like that was a massive help for me. And like, I would have been really, I don't want to say screwed, but I'm saying it, screwed, if I hadn't had those support systems in place.
That is so traumatizing, Chantal. Can you ladies hear me? Okay, perfect. So that was a horribly traumatic experience, Chantal. So sorry you had to experience that. And thank you for sharing that with us. I'm not sure, Summer, have you ever experienced anything similar or any type of like travel scam while traveling?
No, I mean, luckily the only thing that I've had to deal with was the window getting busted out of the car and the backpacks getting stolen. I've had some pretty bad, you know, smaller incidences, but nothing like that. Nothing like that. That was very like traumatizing, even just to be like, I mean, I can't even imagine that, having all of your stuff in the apartment and someone, I mean, like that is so much. It's violating. I felt very violated just having like the window busted and like the backpack stolen, but that is a whole different level. And I'm so sorry you had to go through that. That's a lot. That's just a lot. And I mean, luckily the Airbnb that we were staying at, the guy came out and like vacuumed out the glass, and you know, so it turned out it was okay. But you know, the people at the border were like a little homophobic, if I'm going to be real. And I was, you know, because they were asking us what our relationship was, me and my girlfriend at the time. And you know, I don't always feel safe being like open about that. And we had to, like, I don't know, I just didn't feel like I could lie to these people who are like deciding whether or not we can get back into the United States. But they saw our broken window, we made a police report, and you know, it ended up being okay in the end. But yeah, I just, yeah, I can't imagine what you went through. That's really hard, honey. I'm glad you had a good support team to get you through that, you know.
I would definitely add that you should look up any kind of common scams that are frequently happening in the places that you're visiting. I know for me, the first time I visited Paris, I did like that. There was a scam where someone was saying that they were deaf, and they come up to you with like this paper that says, hey, I'm deaf, donate money to this organization. And I was actually standing outside of the Louvre, traveling solo. And so I wanted to give her some money, but I was unfamiliar with the money, because in Europe it's all euros and then the coins or dollars, but it's complicated. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to look through the coins and figure out what I need and what I can donate. And she grabbed everything in my hand and walked away. So that was, and I was like, ugh, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know, but I was like, okay, well, it's for the deaf people and in the community. But then why did I see that bitch talking and listening? You know what I mean? Like, she was talking to somebody else and telling them a whole different sob story. You know what I mean? So that was the one kind of scam situation that I was in. I also know that something that is very common, specifically in Southeast Asia, are these like ethical tourism scams. So there's lots of different companies saying that they're like doing ethical treatment of animals or doing these ethical trips and helping the earth or helping the animals. And in actuality, they're not doing that. They're pulling on your heartstring and taking your money. And so this is why it's so important to research these things before, and to research any company before you're going to give them a substantial amount of money. So let's see what's next. So Chantel, to go back into your break-in situation, can you kind of share any like major takeaways or learnings that you had from that? I know that happened in an Airbnb. So is there anything that you do differently now if you were to rent an Airbnb?
Yeah, like I pay closer attention to the neighborhoods now. You know, when I got robbed, I was staying in Barrio Alto, which like is a huge tourist spot. Like I've been in that neighborhood a million times, did not think twice of it. And then like when the police came and they were taking the report, they're like, oh yeah, this happens all the time here. Like everybody knew, it felt like everybody knew that like that was not a neighborhood you wanted to stay in except me. And so like, I mean, like I played out every scenario of like what I could have done differently. But like just moving forward, I think like, yeah, I would pay closer attention to like the neighborhoods, like see what people have to say, like maybe like check online. Also too, like I don't mess with ground floor Airbnbs anymore. I like stayed at a hostel and it was on a ground floor and I didn't realize it. I was like visiting a friend that was working there. And the room was ground floor, like right where people are walking on the sidewalk. And I like was triggered. I was like low-key freaking out. Like I was like, oh, someone can easily just hop in the window and just like, boom, they're in our room. And like, I've stayed in ground floor accommodations before and like didn't think twice of it. But now like having gone through that, like I am a little bit more skeptical when it comes to that kind of stuff. You know, like luckily my friends are super sympathetic towards it. So they were like, don't worry, we'll booby trap the window. And so like, they literally like booby trapped the window. They had like buckets with like liquids in it and like brooms set up in a weird way. They were like, if anyone gets in, don't worry, we're going to hear them. I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks guys. Like, you know, so like, if you can't avoid it, like just be mindful. I love that you said the door stopper. Like I absolutely wish I had that. That probably would have prevented the entire situation. I still to this day, like don't know how they got in. So like I don't know if it was like an Airbnb thing. And so like read reviews. That's also super important. Like, and then the last thing I wanted to say, I had something, but I lost it during my train of thought. Don't keep your keep your things on you. And like this was like something I kind of developed after I got robbed, where it was like a nervous thing where like everything I owned after that needed to be like in the bedroom with me. But like keep your valuables close to you. Like had I had my laptop, had I had my backpack maybe in the bedroom, like it could have been a different situation. Like, again, I don't know, but like, you know, keep like the things that you would be like really lost without. Like I work remotely and I had just gotten a brand new job like a week and a half. So like losing my laptop was like a mess. So like even just like things like that, like making sure you're keeping your valuables close, not staying on ground floors, always making sure you're locking your doors, because like some countries have really weird locks, and Portugal is like absolutely a victim of that. So like make it like triple check that your doors are locked, make sure your windows are locked if you have like a terrace. And then, yeah, that's all I got. That's all I can think of. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. Don't post in real time. Like, I don't know how many times I have to express this to women. And this isn't like a travel tip specific. This is just like a female safety tip. Do not post online in real time. Like, I used to do that. I don't know. I'm sure you guys know, but Glow Atamo, she used to do the blog abroad. I know she's moved a little away from blogging, but I remember a story she told me. She was like telling her followers once was where she was staying at a hotel and she like posted in it in real time and someone showed up and was like, hey, I'm outside your hotel. Like, when you coming out? Like, let's hang out. And I'm like, hell to the no. I love you guys, but I need my space and I need my privacy. So I'm like, not as forthcoming with all of the information that I give online. I never post in real time anymore. My friends make fun of me all the time because they're like, oh yeah, Chantel will post that picture of us in like a week. So we'll just wait to see it. But like for me, it's a safety thing. I don't want people showing up. I don't want people to know where I'm at. I don't want people to know I'm traveling. I don't want people to know what I'm traveling with. Like, again, like not concerns that I had, but like having gone through that situation, it's just like, like, I don't want to say it's made me more weary. I want to say it's made me smarter, but it's just like things that you wouldn't necessarily consider can end up being really dangerous. And like, you're really putting yourself at risk by being like, oh yeah, I'm staying at this exact place. Or like, I have a friend who's a gay content creator and a lesbian content creator. And she was in Egypt, I think, or Morocco, that, you know, has some strict views on how they feel towards that community, and people like caught wind that she was like in the country, and she ended up being like, I can't post in real time anymore because it's not safe for me. And like, even something like that, like you might, I love giving people the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, like we live in a world where like I don't know if I can always give that to people I don't know. So just being mindful of what you're putting on the internet when you're putting it on the internet is huge, I think.
Thank you so much. Those are some great tips for sure. I know, Summer, you mentioned that you're a van lifer. Can you kind of share how long you've been doing that, how's that's going, and any like van life safety trips?
Yes. I've been living in a van for almost 4 years. I've had different vans. I started in a minivan and now I have a Sprinter. So having headspace is really nice. But I agree with what you just said about not posting in real time. I think that's a huge safety thing for anybody. But specifically in van life, I find that as well. I definitely on my public account, social media accounts, I never post exact locations. I'm kind of like general area. Like if you notice, I said the Oregon coast is where I live. I don't specifically say I live in a small town in a rural area. And, like I don't want people to specifically know the exact place that I live. Would be terrified if someone was like, I'm outside of your hotel or whatever, or even like, that just, no, that's boundaries. Let's boundaries. Okay. We don't do that. Even if you're like a fan and you just like, no, that's not the way to do that, but what did you ask me? Oh, safety for being in a van. So I have been doing van life by myself, which is, different than people who have a partner or something. I usually try to park in places where there's cell phone reception, if I'm traveling. And same as with hiking, I'll like tell somebody if I'm maybe parking in a place that doesn't have cell reception, I'll make sure that somebody knows where I'm parking and when they can expect to hear from me again. And typically if I'm going to be someplace without cell reception, I want to be with other people, just because I do have that fear of being somewhere without cell reception. There's things like I used to sleep in a public place before I found this place to park every night, where I live now. And I slept sort of on the side of a highway, and that was where I slept for 9 months. And, I remember one of my friends when I was like, oh, there's a place where I used to park, and they looked at the spot and they were like, kind of like, I can't believe you lived there for like 9 months. And I'm like, I just wanted to like see if I could do it, that if I could like live publicly sort of, but in a van. And it's like trying to find places to shower and go to the bathroom and all those kinds of things are trickier, but I really like the freedom that it allows me to like have all the comforts of home in this space that I'm also traveling in. It's, I have a crowbar that I have next to the bed. Like I have bear spray in the van. I always lock my doors at night. If I'm going to park somewhere, like I park in like Walmart parking lots are pretty good when you're like traveling on the road. They're usually lit, or truck stops, they'll be noisy, but at least there's people around. And I just make sure to like stay inside my van once I've parked for the night. I don't like hang out outside of my van, and I don't want people to see who's in the van. I just sort of like chill. And I don't usually, I previously hadn't put like rainbow stickers on my van, but decided that I just wanted to like be myself, and maybe that will be a safety issue for me if somebody saw that, if I'm in a rural area, or in any area, to be honest. But that's okay. Like that's worth it to me to like just sort of be who I am. And knowing that it's not safe, but like that's what we're fighting for. Like that's what I fight for every day in the community that I have and in the work that I do. So yeah, it's not like the easiest way to live in a van, but it definitely have its rewards. Like I can go right now and drive to the beach and lay down on my own bed and look at the ocean, like that's amazing, especially like I have chronic pain, so like I'm not always able to go walk out on a trail or be out in nature. So like being able to see it in this way that's really accessible to me and my needs and my abilities is like has really added so much joy and happiness to my life. And honestly, like having all of the comforts of home wherever I go is pretty amazing. I can put my blinds over my windows and be like, I could be anywhere. Like I could be anywhere, so that's a fun aspect.
That is pretty impressive. And you're kind of talking me into trying to give this van life a ride. I wanted to get into some general safety tips. I don't know if you ladies have anything to add, but one of them that was really helpful for me was
real quick.
Wait,
Annette,
go ahead, Chantel.
I just want to say, I love how you're like van life, but girl, I have road tripped with you and I have camped with you, and
is this a call out right now?
I'm just going to cover my face because when we did do that road trip, camping was trash, bro. Like, I am not a camper. Like, especially if you don't have like a mat?
A mattress pad.
Bro.
Yeah.
Mattress pad, bro. They had the mattress pads for the skinny people. My fat ass was sleeping on rocks the entire Coachella weekend, bro. That was a nightmare. I loved the trip. It was a fantastic trip. But sleeping on rocks and then going to a festival all day, not fun. But like she said that she could bring her bed to the beach. That sounds amazing. That sounds great. Sleeping on rocks, not so much.
I definitely think it's important that you have the tools that you need to be comfortable doing whatever activity it is. So like for me, like I need a place to sit or lay down, and that really helps me. Or like if I'm hiking, I'll bring like a little fold up camp stool in my pack, and like having those tools make the experience more enjoyable. Having a comfortable bed, that would make that experience so much more uncomfortable, like so much more comfortable for you. And you're more likely to do those things again if you enjoy the experience because you have all the things that you need to be comfortable, right? So hopefully you can try again. There's those camper vans they have where you can like rent and it has like everything in it already, and I don't know how comfortable the beds are. Honestly, I have a memory foam on my bed. Yeah, I'm so fancy.
Well, if my what was that sleeping bag had memory foam, I'm sure I would have had a better time on that camping trip, Chantel. Okay? But I wanted to share just some general safety tips. And if you ladies have anything to add before we go into a few more questions and wrap things up. But one thing that's really important is like researching if there's any wardrobe things. So especially if you're going into a country that is like Muslim, or, you know, just different countries have different regulations when it comes around what you can wear. And so that's super important. You don't want to be dressed inappropriately, especially when visiting like a spiritual country. It's also important for safety to not stand out. So if you go somewhere and it's inappropriate to wear booty shorts and crop tops, my favorite outfit, then people are going to stare at you because you stand out and you're going to be an easy target. So just be more mindful of that. It's not necessarily to restrict your fashion sense, but it's sometimes important for safety so that you don't stand out and people notice you and target you for negative things. Another thing, and I don't know if you ladies have anything to add, but for solo female travelers, I would definitely say, like, even with your taxi driver, if you're going out by yourself, if people are asking you, are you traveling solo? You're never traveling solo. You're traveling with friends. They're meeting you later. You have friends at the house. You know, if your taxi driver is dropping you off, yeah, my girlfriends are there, you know. Some people that travel solo also like to wear like a fake wedding ring so that people aren't hitting on them and they can just kind of go under the radar a little bit that way as well. Also, don't leave your drinks. You know what I mean? Like, don't leave your drink at the table or at the bar when you're going to the bathroom. Finish that drink, girl, and then go pee. You know what I mean? So watch your drinks. You're never traveling solo, even if you are. And if you want like a fake engagement ring or wedding ring, that might help you seem like you're not traveling solo. Do you ladies do any of these tricks, or do you have any other tips for not seeming like you're traveling solo for safety reasons, even if you are?
I have absolutely been like, oh, my big, huge boyfriend is waiting for me and he's got huge muscles. I have 100. My wife, again, is a 4'11" little Filipino woman that looks like she's 14 years old, but I'm like, my huge boyfriend is in that room, so don't pull anything funny, and he'll beat you up. But I don't have a big, huge boyfriend, and it'll be me having to beat these people up. So yeah, I've absolutely used that one. So, you know, it works. Been there.
I haven't had to ever do that, thankfully. But I have heard from other people who do solo van life say that a good thing to do when you're sleeping for the night is to don't make it look like somebody doesn't sit in the passenger seat. So like, you know, make like, cause I just have like a bunch, it's like my storage, you know, I live in a van. Like I just put a bunch of stuff in the front seat when I'm traveling. But if you have like, it kind of looks like there's, you know, somebody who doesn't use the passenger seat. So that's a tip that I've heard. I haven't ever been in a place where I felt like I needed to, you know, pretend like I was traveling with another person. I typically try to not be in urban areas, you know, because I love nature. So that's my tip for van life safety, I guess.
Thank you. That's a good one. I was reading up to try to get some tips as well. And something that I read that I found helpful was if you are lost and you're walking, try to go into like a cafe or a store or something and ask a local how to get there, or look through your phone or your Google Maps inside of an establishment, because when you look lost and you're just focusing on your phone, it's a really easy way to become a target, to get pickpocketed, any of those types of things. So I read that and I was like, that's really helpful. Go into a cafe, go into a shop, ask for directions, and then pull out your phone and look for directions to where you're going. Let's see, I had a couple more questions for Summer. I know you mentioned that you have the Fat Girls Hiking book. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, when that's coming out, how we can get that?
Yes, the Fat Girls Hiking book. Woo! Annette is in this book, by the way. Some glorious pictures. I want to see if I can find it real quick. But this is coming out on March 29th. So gosh, that's in a week, right? I think it's a week away. And you can find it anywhere that sells books. I know that, you know, I usually try to buy from independent bookstores because that's what I love. But, you know, Amazon has it. I saw it was listed on Walmart. You can buy it through my publisher, which is Timber Press. And I have all that in, you know, on my social medias. But the book is essentially like what it would be like to experience like a group hike with the Fat Girls Hiking community. So there's like stories from the community. Annette told her story about her experiences with nature. And there's lots of different people that we call the community spotlights. And there's glorious pictures of all these people. And then there's stories that I wrote about my personal experiences in the outdoors and body liberation and fat activism online, and growing up in Minnesota and how much that did not make me like the outdoors very much, and how I started to like the outdoors. And it was kind of a struggle at first. And then there's also trail reviews from all over the US that the Fat Girls Hiking ambassadors contributed to the book. And then all the photos, or most of the photos, I should say, were taken by me. And so there's just like, I don't know if you want to see, but there's just glorious, like big color photos. And my favorite thing, this thing that I wanted this book to be, is I wanted it to have like a texture and a cover where it's not like something you would just keep on your coffee table, that you would actually like take it in your backpack. And I mean, I'm such a book nerd, so maybe not everyone would want to do this, but like I love just like taking a book with me on a hike and just sitting in a spot, eating some snacks and like reading. But so you can take it with you in your pack, and it's 1 pound 6 ounces. So maybe that might be too heavy for some people, but yeah, I'm very excited to have it published, and honestly shocked that they even let me publish a book. But I'm a writer, and I have been a writer my whole life, so it's a dream come true to have this for everyone, to have the outlet, the access, the representation. It's like huge, you know, and needed.
Definitely needed, definitely huge. And we're so freaking proud of you, Summer. Like, man, this is definitely what our community needs. And I'm so excited to share with our community about your book and to promote your book, to let everyone know to go get it. I'm also honored to be a part of it. Thank you for including me. Yeah, I'm super excited about that. Oh, cute. It's me and Bali. Okay, so let's see. This is kind of random, but definitely on topic. The Tinder swindler. Okay, so I'm not sure if you ladies have seen this show. It's a Netflix like documentary situation, but it's basically about this guy who, like us, enjoys traveling, but he scams all these women to actually afford the travel. And then he uses the money that he scams from other women to use on new targets, so that when he needs more money, those targets trust him and let him borrow $50,000. Because why? Because he just took me on his private jet to Sweden last week. And so I know that he has the money. So let me just let him borrow 50 G's. I personally don't have 50 G's to let people borrow, but I wanted to kind of just broach this topic in general, because I feel like not even necessarily for dating, but we're meeting people that we meet online in person lots these days. Like looking at the stats, 40% of relationships have met online. And so many people can get manipulated, not just by someone who's saying, I'm your boyfriend, but by someone saying like, hey, I'm your new best friend. And so I don't know if you have ever experienced being manipulated by someone that you met online. I know I did a little quick poll in the group to see if anyone had ever traveled to meet someone for a first date, out of state or out of country. And about 40% of our community said that they had traveled out of state or out of country for a first date. And so I don't know if you ladies have any tips or suggestions for this. From my perspective, I would say the most important thing is to let someone know where you're going, let a friend know, let multiple friends know, and also keep your location tracker on. You know what I mean? Like have your friend that has the like Find My Friend app for you, call her, let her know you're going on a date or you're meeting a new online friend, and tell her to turn on that location tracker. So I'm not sure if you ladies have any suggestions or tips about this kind of stuff, but I do know that this is something that we can experience with relationships or friendships, this manipulation and this scamming.
Steph and I got together before Tinder was a thing. So not so much in that department, but like just like I have been on the receiving end of a friend that has gone on a date with someone, and what they'll do is like they'll be like, hey, like this is the information that I have about the person. So like this is their picture, this is their name, this is where we're meeting. And so like granted, like if they were a catfish, like it's not the best information, but at least like if God forbid it got to the point where like I had to go to the police, like this is at least the information I could give them, you know? So like if you're not single, like make it very aware to your single friends that you're like very down to be that friend for them. And like, you know, if they like let them know that like if it does make them feel safer, like they're more than happy to send the information to you. I think that's huge. Also, like don't go to a person's house maybe the first time you meet them. Questionable, meet in public. And yeah, that's my tips.
This is why I don't like online dating, to be honest. I am single, but gosh, that just like really scares the beep out of me. That the possibility of that, you know, and it's like it really sucks that we even have to like have this conversation in the first place, that like the world isn't safer for people, especially like women and marginalized people. But I stopped online dating because of this and many other reasons. Mainly I live in a rural area where there's no options, so that's fine. But I meet people from the internet to come hiking, and when I post group hikes, you know, and it's been a long time since I've been doing group hikes, and so you know, you just never know who's going to show up. And I think that like me being very authentic and open about who I am online, like, and what our community guidelines are as far as like, you know, what's welcomed and what's not welcomed in the community. And so I think that it really naturally draws people who are very like-minded, and that's been for the most part a really great experience. But I will say that I have led hikes where after the hike someone messaged me and said that she was uncomfortable that I said that I was queer, and that nobody was there looking for a date. Yeah, I recently reread the messages because I like remembered it, and so it was like really like a shitty situation, because like we had spent time together on the trail and hiked and everything, and there were some kids on the trail and she didn't like that. And so I don't know, it's just like really about like you just never know like who's gonna come. And I don't know if I necessarily have like tips. I mean, I always keep mace and bear spray on me when I'm just for the record. I called it my man spray and my bear spray because like at night, sometimes I would just be like, these are my safety things. But you just don't know. People can hurt you in all different sorts of ways. They can hurt you like emotionally, and those like really like the ones that are a little bit further along, like the manipulating you to give them money. Like I don't have any advice for something like that. I can't. I'm a very much like a untrusting person, so there's like I probably would never be in a situation where I get there. But I've also been in abusive relationships, so it's like you just never know. And you know, like the best thing I would say is just like make sure you have a support system. Like we've said several times here, like having people know where you are and people that you care that care about you, that trust you and that love you, knowing where you're at, I think is a really great thing. And it like again, it really just sucks that we even have to have this conversation, or that we have to put ourselves in those situations where we're like just doing a regular thing, like, you know, going for a group hike or going on a date, and we have to like consider all of this. But that's the reality of the world we live in.
Very true. And Summer mentioned having a support system. I actually found out about this really cool resource recently, and it's called the No More Global Resources Directory. And basically, if something happens where you're sexually assaulted while you're abroad, or like beaten up, or having some emotional instability, there's basically a website where you can go and get resources for every country. And so the website is called No More, and it's the No More Global Resources Directory. And they have things like LGBT plus support for victims of discrimination and violence. They have a sexual assault helpline, domestic violence helplines, and crisis intervention for psychological help. And so this is just a really good free resource that you can use when you're abroad, because you know you can't just call 911. The laws are different in every country. And so this was a resource that I found. If you're in that situation and you find yourself without a local support system, this is information to contact people locally to get the support that you need legally. So before we wrap it up, I wanted to ask both of you ladies if there were any just last minute safety tips that you wanted to share. I asked the community, and a couple of the helpful tips that we got, one was from Kate about packing extra masks. And these were specific for COVID, like traveling now during this COVID pandemic. So Kate said to pack extra masks, specifically because sometimes they're uncomfortable, sometimes they fit weird, and you want to have a couple extras, especially if you're going on a long haul trip, if you're going to be on a plane, in an airport, on a train. It's really important just to pack some extra masks. It was Amber who said that even if you're going to a place where the mask mandate has been removed, still bring extra masks, because you might need to wear a mask in the grocery store, in your Uber, different things like this. So in this day and time, just keep some extra masks on you. I know Kate also mentioned that one of our members, Hannah, she recently took a trip to Israel, and she was able to take one of those rapid COVID tests. But then as she arrived to the airport, Israel changed it, and you needed to have a PCR test instead of a rapid test. And so she couldn't even leave for, I think, 3 or 4 days until she could get that PCR test. So Kate also suggested take the PCR test when you can, because every country accepts that. Some countries accept the rapid test, the antigen test, but all countries accept the PCR. So take that just to be safe. And then let's see, it was Trina who said to research every country before entry, because like I just mentioned with Hannah, these things are changing. These regulations are changing daily. You know, a country can say tomorrow that now you have to have your vaccination card to enter. You know, we don't know when and why these countries are going to change the regulations. So make sure that you're researching before you leave, because it might have changed from a week ago, you know? And my personal tip from my recent health scare is to get travel insurance. I wrote an article about what recently happened to me and shared the company that I have travel insurance with, but do your research, go with whatever travel company works best for you, but get that travel insurance. I was in the hospital in Mexico for almost 2 weeks, and that was over $50,000 in medical fees, and my insurance paid for 20,000 of that. So get that travel insurance. Do you ladies have any tips or suggestions, especially during COVID? And that's another thing too. Get yourself a travel company that also covers COVID.
This isn't necessarily COVID related, but I think it just works in most situations. Something I tell people often is just trust your gut. Like, your intuition's really strong, and you know when you're in a situation that might not be the best. So don't ignore those moments. I have been in many situations where my intuition has told me that maybe this isn't the best predicament, and I've gotten myself out of it. And sometimes it doesn't always work for me, but I think that really like listening to yourself and listening to that intuition is really important when it comes to like a female traveler.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have any COVID specific. I'm a person who wears a mask around everyone, just because I don't have a bubble even. It's just me. I wear I wear the KN95s or the N95s, I think. I mean, it seems like we're in a better place now, but who knows? And like you said, countries and different areas, and even just like in the States, like they're changing all the time. And I think for me personally, to protect myself, like in every situation where I'm around a person, I'm going to be wearing a mask. But that's, everybody's different and has their own comfort levels with wearing masks. And we're hopefully going to start some group hikes again soon. So masks are going to be required, whether we like them or not. Like, it's just, I think for community care and take best care of our community is to protect people who are most vulnerable. And like, that's my best friend. She's immunocompromised, and I want her to be able to come on hikes and know that everyone's going to be wearing a mask. And even though we're outside, so it's just like, for me, it's like, there's nothing, it's not that inconvenient for me to wear a mask to keep myself and other people safe. But I know there's a lot of varying opinions on this topic. So my biggest safety tip would be keep wearing your masks.
And you mentioned your group hikes, Summer. How would we join your group hikes? And can you kind of explain your group hikes? I know for my community, when I do my fat camps and in general, my events are for my community only. But I know that with Fat Girls Hiking, you're a little more open and accepting than I am.
Well, I mean, so group hikes, yes, are open to people of all sizes, all genders, because really I want allies there. I do. If people are considering themselves an ally, like I want them to be there to experience how I lead a hike, which is I'm the last person in the group. So people who are slow like me have the most support. And that is very different than a traditional group hike. So when people come to a hike, they will expect to have introductions where we talk about, our favorite thing in nature, and we state our name and our pronouns. And it's really like a place to connect with each other and ourselves and nature. It's not really about like, we have to get to this destination and we have to get good time. And it's like, it's really more about just like taking care of ourselves and listening to our intuition. Like you said, our intuition is so strong. And I really think that like by connecting to nature, it's a way to facilitate and grow that. those instincts and that just like intuition. It's innate in us, and we suppress it in all the ways that we live our lives, right? But all of the group hikes are listed. We haven't been doing any for a while because of COVID, obviously, but we're going to be doing some coming up soon. And those will be on the Fat Girls Hiking Eventbrite page. So all the chapters, well, before the pandemic, there were 37 chapters, and there were some in other countries as well. I don't know what it's going to be like once we start going again, and how many ambassadors are going to keep leading. It's like everything's kind of been all jumbled up, but that would be the Eventbrite page is a good place for people to start, and they can follow us there. So when we post a hike, then they'll get an email to let them know that a post has been made, and if it's in their area, they can join us. The biggest thing is that, we don't talk about weight loss or dieting. There's no body shaming allowed, no bigotry, no racism, homophobia, transphobia. It's really like, I really want it to be a welcoming space to marginalized people, and allies, yes, are welcome as well. But not at our retreats necessarily, but definitely on the group hikes. Come and see what it's about, to have a go at your own pace, led from behind hike. That's really what I think makes Fat Girls Hiking different.
Such a great point, Summer. Like, I know as a fat person, that anxiety that you feel about being the last person on any active activity. And I have gone on Fat Girls Hiking hikes, and I've loved every moment of it. And I do love the fact that the leader of the hike is at the back of the hike and just kind of hanging out with the person that is taking their time, and there's no like shame or anything associated with that, which is something that so many of us struggle with. And sometimes we allow that to prevent us from doing these types of activities. So thank you for explaining that. Before we wrap it up, I just want to let you ladies share any final thoughts, as well as your social media handles, so that anyone watching can follow you afterward.
Okay. My final thoughts. The world is a phenomenal place, and it will teach you so many beautiful lessons. Will introduce you to some people that will help shape you and mold you and figure out who you truly are. And it really is, like, traveling honestly is something that I recommend to everybody, whatever your physical capability might be, whatever your marginalized group you come from, like, even if it's just traveling 15 minutes down the road, like, just do it. And so, like, I think it's important to say, like, yes, there are situations that you may have to consider safety, but don't let any of us deter you from having these big adventures. Don't let any of our cautionary tales deter you from doing what you want to do, visiting where you want to visit. Do what makes you happiest, but do it in a way that's safe for you. And yeah, if you want to hear more of my overwhelming positivity, you can find me. I'm most active on Instagram. It's voyaging_vagabond. My website is voyagingvagabond.com. I have not updated it since the pandemic because your girl has been busy getting other money, writing other things. But there are still some fantastic resources on there. But yes, I'm really thankful to Annette for bringing me on here. I really hope and encourage that everybody can get the chance to, like, see what this big old world has to offer, because it is incredible. So I'll leave you guys with that.
I totally agree with you. I think that we like just having a place where people can, like, having this conversation about, like, how to be safe when you're traveling or when you're in the outdoors is, like, it's so relative to who we are, right? But it can be, it can be overwhelming and scary at times. But like you said, I just think that people just go somewhere local, go somewhere close by. What do you want to see? What do you want to do? Start that way. If you haven't really traveled much, there's so much to see. And do. And if you can't or don't want to, just there's lots online for you to see and vicariously live through what other people are doing if that's not possible for you. And I am also most active on Instagram. I don't really understand Facebook, and it's always doesn't do what I want it to do. But it's Fat Girls Hiking on both Instagram and on Facebook. And I have a website, which also I need to update. We're going to be doing some updating here soon, I guess. But thank you so much for having me on, and it was really great to chat with you both.
Thanks both of you ladies for joining me. This was such an informative and fun conversation, and I hope people can listen and learn, but also, like Chantel mentioned, not be deterred from traveling and seeing the places that your heart desires just because other people might have had negative experiences there. Please feel free to comment with any safety tips or travel safety tips that you have. Otherwise, have a fantastic day. Enjoy wherever you are. And thank you for joining us.